Chapter 5, Developing the Security Program. The learning outcomes include: determine how to plan and staff an organization's information security program based on its size, list and describe the functional components of the information security program, evaluate the internal and external factors that influence the activities and organization of an information security program, list and describe the typical job titles and functions performed in the information security program, describe the components of a security education, training, and awareness, or SETA program, and understand how organizations create and manage these programs, and discuss the role of project management in information security. We will cover these 6 learning outcomes in the following 6 sections. We begin with Section 1, Organizing for Security. The learning outcomes for this section include the first 3. Determine how to plan and staff an organization's information security program based on its size. List and describe the functional components of the information security program. And evaluate the internal and external factors that influence the activities and organization of an information security program. The term information security program is used to describe the structure and organization of the effort that strives to contain risk to the information assets of the organization. Among the variables that determine how to structure an infosec program are organizational culture, size, security personnel budget, and security capital budget. When implementing an information security program, it's important to understand and include all of the functional areas. Functions needed to implement the infosec program include: risk assessment. We have to understand the risk that we may face. Risk management. Once we understand the risk, we must have a plan in place to manage it and respond to it. We also need to test the systems that the organization uses. We need to test regularly to ensure that our infosec plans are effective and still meet organizational needs. We need to set and review information security policy. This is where it's important to have a written policy in place, one that changes as technology, systems, and outside factors change. InfoSec policy is incomplete without legal assessment. If you're not a lawyer, and you probably aren't, seek legal assistance. Even if you're a small healthcare organization, you likely still need legal help. You need to have a plan on how you will respond to security incidents. The plan should be regularly tested, reflected upon, and updated as needed. An information security program is incomplete without proper planning, and project management can assist in developing a better InfoSec plan. The information security program must be measured. Items within the plan need to be measurable, and then you need to actually measure them. How many password security issues did you have in the last period? How many times were users able to reach access levels that were not appropriate? How many violations of InfoSec policy did you have? As we mentioned, InfoSec policies must be distributed, and the goal is to have 100% compliance. That's likely not going to happen. You're going to have the person who tries to guess her friend's password, or the user who tries to get access for which he doesn't have permission. It's important to measure, record, and reflect upon compliance levels. In general, it's good practice to have a centralized authentication system, particularly at the basic login level. You don't want people to be able to access your systems at all. Keep them out beforehand, and then you don't have to worry about what they do later. The organization should also have an administrator or group or specified unit that administers the system security plan. We have mentioned time and again the importance of security education, training, and awareness. That's a functional activity that is needed to implement a successful infosec program. In addition to managing the system security, you also need someone to manage the network security. Approaches to implementing information security programs vary in part on the size of your organization. Let's start with large or very large organizations. In large organizations, information security departments tend to form and reform to meet long-term challenges, even as they handle day-to-day security operations. While smaller organizations may be unable to split functions into groups, it's a good option for large organizations. One recommended approach is to separate the functions into those activities performed by non-technology business units outside the IT area of management control, such as legal and training. This allows specialization by level of expertise. While you may know enough legal terms to understand basic legal concepts, you likely are not a lawyer, as discussed, and in a large organization, you need close legal review of the infosec policies you produce. Another activity could be performed by IT groups outside the infosec area of management control, such as System Security Administrator or Network Security Administration or centralized authentication. Again, this allows specialization. Every IT person doesn't know everything, and every infosec policy person doesn't necessarily know all the nuts and bolts about system security programming. Dividing into functions puts the activities with the groups who are most qualified to do them. The third option is for the activities performed within the infosec department as to serve as a customer service to the organization and its external partners, such as risk assessment, systems testing, incident response planning, and disaster recovery planning, and performance measurement and vulnerability assessment. Finally, some functions may be performed within the infosec department as a compliance enforcement obligation, such as policy, compliance audit, and risk management. Again, put the responsibility for the action with the people who are most qualified to do the tasks. This graphic is one example of how to staff for a large information security group in a large organization. You can see that the company has a CISO with technical security and risk management and policy reporting to him or her. Functions are divided based on area of expertise, which is the ideal solution. In this example, the organization may have 1 or 2 full-time information security managers, along with 3 or 4 full-time security administrators, 3 or 4 part-time security managers, and 10 to 12 part-time security administrators, technician. In a very large organization, simply increases the number of employees and the degree of specialization. However, with more employees, communications become a challenge. A very large organization may have double or more the infosec staff to manage as compared to a large organization. Medium-sized organizations may still be large enough to implement the multi-tiered approach to security described for large organizations, though perhaps with fewer dedicated groups and more functions assigned to each group. In a medium-sized organization, more of the functional areas are assigned to other departments within IT, but outside the infosec department, especially the central authentication function. In the graphic, the medium-sized organization only has 1 full-time security person with perhaps 3 individuals with part-time infosec responsibilities. Instead of a CISO, there's a security manager with security administrators and security technicians reporting to her or him. That's a tremendous difference from the large and very large organizations, which means that employees and/or units likely have multiple specializations with broad depth of experience breadth of experience and less depth of experience. In contrast, smaller organizations typically create fewer groups, perhaps only having one general group of specialists. InfoSec may become the responsibility of a jack of all trades, a single security administrator with perhaps one or two assistants for managing the technical components. It is not uncommon in smaller organizations to have the systems or network administrators play these many roles. Because resources are often limited in smaller organizations, the security administrator frequently turns to freeware or open source software to lower the cost of assessing and implementing security. Open source software is free, but often comes with unplanned costs at some point in the implementation. In small organizations, security training and awareness is most commonly conducted on a one-on-one basis, with the security administrator providing advice to users as needed. Some feel that small organizations avoid some threats precisely because of their small size. Threats from insiders are less likely in an environment where every employee knows every other employee. In general, the less anonymity an employee has, the less likely he or she feels able to get away with abuse or misuse of company assets. Smaller organizations typically either have one individual who has full-time duties in InfoSec, or more likely, one individual who manages or conducts InfoSec duties in addition to those of other functional areas, most likely IT, possibly with one or two assistants. You can see in this graphic an example of an organizational chart for a small organization. The person leading the effort and perhaps implementing it, testing it, refining it, maintaining it, etc., may be a security manager. If that person is lucky, they may have one or two full-time support staff. Sometimes a security manager is the only one responsible for information technology in a small organization. To summarize, in this section, we looked at how different sized organizations staff the information security function. How to staff InfoSec depends on many factors in addition to size, including organizational culture and the personnel and capital budgets available to information security. Clearly, large organizations have more InfoSec resources than medium and small counterparts. Correspondingly, large organizations have more responsibilities, more complexities, and more people to train than their peers in small organizations. InfoSec policies and implementation should be made with the best staffing solution available, whether it's a public or private organization, small, medium, or large, or for-profit or not-for-profit. Understand the functions that InfoSec needs to perform and use the resources available to implement the best policies and procedures possible. We continue Chapter 5, Developing the Information Security Program. This is Section 2, Placing InfoSec within an organization. The learning outcome covered in this section is discuss how to plan and staff an organization's information security program based on its size. In large organizations, InfoSec is often located within the Information Technology Department, headed by the CISO, who reports directly to the top computing executive or CIO. By its very nature, an InfoSec program is sometimes at odds with the goals and objectives of the IT department as a whole. Because the goals and objectives of the CIO and the CISO may come in conflict, it is not difficult to understand the current movement to separate information security from the IT division. The challenge is to design a reporting structure for the InfoSec program that balances the needs of each of the communities of interest. And it's not an easy issue to resolve. As mentioned previously, ISIT was often placed in the finance or accounting departments because they were the first groups to use technology on a regular basis. Over time, it became clear that IS/IT needed to be a separate department. We may see the same resolution with the split of IS or IT and infosec. Let's look at a few options for structuring infosec within the organization. Option 1 is a separate and distinct IT department with information security reporting through the IT department, but also having the responsibility to report to the infosec management committee. This option combines IS and IT and has inherent limitations, as we mentioned. Moreover, there isn't a CIO or a CISO with a seat at the table for the board of directors, which is not ideal. Option 2 is a broadly defined security department, reporting through a more general administrative services department. Security and HR both report to admin services, and security is further subdivided into personnel security and safety, infosec, and physical security. This option allows specialized professionals to handle the infosec tasks. In addition, there's a broadly defined security department that handles physical and digital security of information assets and employees. Further, information security and information technology are separated, relieving some of the natural tension between the two. However, there is no CISO with a seat at the table of the board of directors. Option 3 has a broadly defined administrative services department which oversees information and physical security along with numerous other tasks. With this option, tasks are clearly divided into numerous specialties, ultimately reporting to the CIO. But there is no CISO, and the CIO and CISO may have conflicting priorities as previously discussed. Option 4 includes information security under the Insurance and Risk Management Department. Physical and information security are within the same department but separated into subunits. With this option, there isn't a CIO or a CISO. Option 5 places infosec within a strategy and planning department. Infosec is further separated into business, systems, and emergency response groups. There is no CIO or CISO included with this option, but IT and information security are separated. However, some of the responsibilities of infosec are included within IT, leading to inevitable balancing challenges. Other options include adding infosec to a legal department, an internal audit department, the help desk, an accounting and finance department which manages IT, human resources, facilities management, or operations. Which of these options is best? They all have inherent advantages and disadvantages. The information security needs of any organization are unique to the culture, size, and budget of that organization. Determining what level the information security program operates on depends on the organization's strategic plan and in particular on the vision and mission statements we discussed previously. The CIO and CISO should use these documents to formulate the mission statement for the information security program. Organizational culture plays a large part in making the decision. The perceived importance of IT and infosec may also affect where infosec is placed. Evaluate the pros and cons and make the best decision you can within the context of internal and external limitations, organizational culture, and other factors. To summarize this section, structures for information security within the organization may take multiple formats. We illustrated several options in this section. One is not necessarily better than the other. Organizations must consider the structure of infosec within the context of internal and external requirements, culture, resource availability, and the perceived importance of infosec within the organization when deciding which structure to use. We continue Chapter 5, Developing the Security Program. This is Section 3, Security Roles. The learning outcome for this section: list and describe the typical job functions and titles performed in the information security program. According to Swartz et al., infosec positions can be classified into one of three types: those that define, those that build, and those that administer. Definers provide the policies, guidelines, and standards. They're the people who do the consulting and the risk assessment, who develop the product and technical architectures. These are senior people with a lot of broad knowledge, but perhaps not a lot of depth. Then you have builders. They're the real techies who create and install security solutions. Finally, you have the people who operate and administrate the security tools, the security monitoring function, and the people who continuously improve the processes. Each of these groups is important to successful infosec policy implementations. A typical organization has a number of individuals with information security responsibilities, and titles may include some of the following: Chief Information Security Officer or Chief Security Officer, Security Managers, Security Administrators and Analysts, Security Technicians, Security Staffers and Watchstanders, Security Consultants, Security Officers and Investigators, and Help Desk personnel. While the titles used may be different, most of the job functions fit into one of the above information security positions. The Chief Information Security Officer, or CISO, is the senior level information security professional in the organization. They may also be called the Director of Security, Senior Security Manager, or some similar title. The CISO usually reports directly to the CIO, although in larger organizations, one or more additional layers of management may separate the two officers. It's preferable to have the CISO report directly to the CEO or president, which again allows infosec to have a seat at the table of the board of directors. The CISO is primarily responsibility for the assessment, management, and implementation of the program that secures the organization's information. More recently, organizations have begun to use the title Chief Security Officer to describe the top information security professional in the organization. More mature and often larger organizations will use the CISO title. This person is responsible for the convergence of the physical and IT risk into one complete program to control all those risks. If you recall, we mentioned earlier that it's preferable to have physical and digital security managed by the same role, and a CSO role accomplishes that goal. Some, however, will simply call the Senior Executive for Physical Security the CSO and define a role for the CSO that is not integrated into a holistic risk management program. This is a less preferable option from a policy standpoint. Have you ever worked at the help desk? If not, you should. I have worked at a help desk in the past. You become familiar with every possible technology problem or other problem that can occur if you simply spend a week or two in a help desk. The help desk provides an important portion of the information security team in the organization. A well-run and capable help desk with allocation of proper resources enhances a security team's ability to identify potential problems. When a user calls the help desk with a complaint about his or her computer, the network, or an internet connection, the user's problem may turn out to be related to a bigger problem, such as a hacker, denial of service attack, or a virus. Help desk professionals must be properly trained as first responders to recognize potential information security problems and the importance of identifying appropriate personnel to report problems to. Because help desk technicians perform a specialized role in information security, they have a need for specialized training. Resources must be provided for this specialized training, and it must be reinforced and updated over time. Don't underestimate the importance of having good help desk professionals, and give them a pat on the back every once in a while. They see customers at their worst moments and have to respond in professional manners to frustrated, angry people with a deadline to meet or a patient to treat. Treat these people well, retrain them often, and offer a path upward in the organization for qualified help desk personnel. To summarize, there are numerous titles for the CISO, and organizations vary in the level where the CISO is placed. The best outcome is for the top infosec professional to be at the C level, which represents the priority on securing information assets and which allows a direct seat at the table for the board of directors. CISOs are responsible for assessing the information security policies, plans, and processes, managing the infosec function, and implementing security and planning measures to protect the information assets of the organization. Recently, some organizations have moved to a chief security officer who oversees physical and digital security of organizational assets. This allows the CSO to have a broader view and to recognize and address problems more quickly. We continue Chapter 5, Developing the Security Program. This is Section 4, the Security Education, Training, and Awareness, or SETA Program. The learning outcomes for this section, we will discuss components of a Security Education, Training, and Awareness program and explain how organizations create and manage these programs. We've talked previously about the Security Education, Training, and Awareness, SETA programs. It's an essential component of implementing information security in the organization and cannot be overlooked. SETA programs are designed to reduce accidental security breaches by members of the organization. Companies who implement SETA programs can expect three major benefits. They can improve employee behavior. Employees will be less likely to accidentally or intentionally expose the organization to risk. Users can inform members of the organization about where to report violations of policy. Users at the level where activities are performed will typically notice when something needs to be changed. SETA empowers them to report areas of concern and allows them to know where they need to report. They enable the organization to hold employees accountable for their actions. Employees must affirm that they have read and understand the infosec policies and sign or otherwise indicate that they agreed to follow the policies. SETA programs can also enhance security in several other ways. Sometimes infosec and or IT professionals need to undertake professional development opportunities so that they are prepared to handle the rapidly changing infosec environment. By offering development programs, the organization builds in-depth knowledge with updated and educated infosec professionals who are able to design, implement, and operate security programs for organizations and systems over the long term. Even though most of you are looking at healthcare organizations and the infosec professional is not strictly a healthcare worker, they still need the resources to do their jobs and support the healthcare workers who provide services to patients and others. Similarly, those who use technology to complete their core responsibilities may need training. For these professionals, the organization may develop the skills and knowledge needed for users to perform their jobs while using IT systems more securely. Here, doctors and nurses and other providers of healthcare, for instance, need to know how to report diagnoses, record medication dosage, record recommended follow-up procedures and outcomes, etc. Finally, efforts to improve the understanding of infosec policy throughout the organization will increase awareness of all users and other stakeholders and explain why and how to protect system resources. Good SETA programs can make the difference between exceeding regulations and not meeting regulations, thus saving time and money that can then be applied to areas that directly impact the services provided to patients or other customers. Clearly, SETA programs are needed for reasons we've already identified. But how do we design, develop, and implement an effective SETA program? Organizations may decide that infosec professionals, those who are closest to infosec and understand it clearly, will deliver the training. However, it's important to realize that many infosec professionals do not have the background or experience to deliver SETA programs. Some argue that infosec professionals should stick with their area of expertise and qualified trainers deliver the program. If this option makes tactical sense in your organization, then you may decide to keep infosec professionals within their area of expertise, infosec, and select an outside or internal group to deliver the infosec training. It's possible that your infosec professionals aren't up to date on their education. If so, then the organization truly needs to provide security education opportunities to improve the security of the organization as a whole. Local and regional resources may provide additional information regarding education, and law enforcement may link with training providers. There are two ways that management can deliver training to the organization, either customized or outsourcing, all or part of it. The first method of developing customized SETA is by functional background. Here we classify users as general, managerial, or technical. General users may need access to standard software such as Adobe, Microsoft Office, Outlook, and Chrome. When they log into company resources, they may have only minimal access needed to complete their responsibilities. The second type of functional background is managerial users. These professionals need access to general software and basic databases and such, but they also have a higher level of access since they manage others. They may need to have access to summary reports, problem tickets related to those they supervise, etc. They may also need the ability to write to and update databases that deal with employee performance. Finally is the technical user. This person may be IT or ISA or whatever department used by the organization. They need write access to system-level files, but they only need access to the systems that they are allowed to change. A technical user does not need access to patient treatment data, and similarly, a doctor does not need access to change system-level code. We may also classify users by skill level. With this method, we refer to novice, intermediate, and advanced skill levels. Novice users are new. They may be newly hired or new to a system or technology. For novice users, there must be a specific set of SETA programs that they complete prior to being released in the wild or allowed to do something unintended. Intermediate users have experience with the systems and technologies in place and may have been employed at the organization and in a similar role for many years. They need refresher training periodically and as updates are made, but they don't need the level of hand-holding that a novice does. Finally, the advanced user is experienced both with systems and technology as well as infosec programs and policies. They need refresher training periodically, but they are the best trained users that we have in the organization and can generally be trusted to secure and use data in wise, properly approved manners. No matter how we classify users, infosec professionals are charged with tracking use of organizational systems and techniques through audit logs and other measures that link actions with specific. Selection of the training delivery method is not always based on the best outcome for the trainees. Often other factors, budget, scheduling, and the needs of the organization come first. Options for delivering training include the following. One-on-one, while the trainer and the trainee get significant depth of study and substantial question and answer time, this is only practical for small portions of infosec training or for those at high levels of the organization. If your entire hospital needs training, for instance, one-on-one will take too long and be inadequate. Formal class, here you have a scheduled training location in person via teleconferencing at a particular time. If everyone cannot attend the days, times you schedule, then the training will not meet needs. Computer-based training, this option could be in person, partially in person, training session followed by individual work later, whatever works. Distance learning web seminars, this option presents the most flexibility since you can deliver the same training information to large groups of people at different levels and with different numbers. While this offers significant breadth of coverage, it's not sufficient for those who need specialized training on particular systems or for those who have varying access levels. Additional training materials may have to be developed for specific functions and/or levels of the organization. User support group. Sometimes you solicit the input of users who are very adept at using the system. These super users may develop and deliver formalized training to others with similar needs, or they may serve as a support resource as needed. This is only practical for small user groups where someone will receive the time resources needed to support the users outside the scope of his or her other responsibilities. On-the-job training, in some organizations, they may throw you in right away and you sink or swim on your own. While this option means that your users will probably be well-versed in systems, it takes significant amounts of time and it's not the most efficient method. In addition, since users train themselves, they may be unaware of specific infosec policies, which could increase the organization's liability in the future. Self-study, non-computerized. Finally, the company may offer self-study that isn't computerized. This is similar to providing instructions for use for products that you purchase. The problem here is some people won't complete the self-study. Tell me the truth. Do you ever read all of those user manuals that you receive for everything you buy? I don't. I toss it after I get it working the first time. Then I Google it if I have questions later. Should you outsource or train the trainers? How should we deliver the SETA program we design? Well, it depends. Let's look at the NIST approach to training preparation, which consists of the following 7 steps. Step 1, identify program scope, goals, and objectives. These should be clearly listed and understandable. Step 2, identify training staff. When we identify the training staff, we will likely need to decide whether to keep it with infosec, move it to IT or HR or other location, and/or outsource the training. This decision depends on the organizational and regulatory environment in which the company operates, as well as resources and other factors. Step 3, identify target audiences. Here we specify who will receive the training. What level are the users? What are their existing skills on similar systems? How much time do they have to spend on training? Consider the relevant factors and make a decision. Step 4, motivate management and employees. You need some top management buy-in to make this step work. Sometimes motivation is that we're doing this to comply with regulations, and you have to do it if you want to work here. That works with clear links from training to laws and regulations. Top management support and mandates to use the new system will help motivate employees to use the system. Step 5, administer the program. Someone has to administer the program over time. They need the resources, time, money, people, to deliver the SETA program necessary for your organization. Step 6, maintain the program. The program must be maintained, updated, changed to meet regulatory requirements, etc. Resources must be provided yet again. Step 7, evaluate the program. Finally, you evaluate how well the program is doing. Where do we need to make changes or updates? Where are we doing a good job already? Ultimately, you consider all of these factors and make the best recommendation to deliver the security education, training, and awareness program at your organization. Security awareness. Haven't we already covered this one? Awareness is the portion of SETA that is least frequently implemented. However, it offers the most effective security opportunities when properly designed and implemented. Components of the Security Awareness Program include setting the stage for training by changing organizational attitudes to realize the importance of security and the adverse consequences of its failure. Top management and user-level buy-in improves the chances of this portion of security awareness. Reminding users of the procedures to be followed by designing relevant training programs, sending email or other reminders, etc. We all need reminders to do what we need to do, so it becomes habit-forming for us. By changing the organizational attitudes and reminding users of the procedures to follow, you have a greater chance of spreading security awareness throughout the organization. Many security awareness components are available at little or no cost. Others can be very expensive if purchased externally. Security awareness components can include some of the following items: videos, posters and banners, lectures and conferences, computer-based training, newsletters, brochures and flyers, trinkets like coffee cups, pens, pencils, t-shirts, tote bags, and bulletin boards. Again, use whatever is most effective in terms of resources and outcomes for your organization. When developing an awareness program, focus on people. Offer training opportunities for the functions that they do and the levels of their roles within the organization. Refrain from using technical jargon. They don't want to hear about PM and QA and ABC and XYZ, and they're not techies. Use every available venue, online, in-person, web conferencing, etc. Take advantage of in-house communications media. Marketing and HR usually have people who do this stuff for a living. Take advantage of their expertise. Don't overload the users. Keep the information in manageable chunks that users can digest, try on their own, and come back with questions as needed. Make the awareness program formal. Plan and document all actions. Keep a record of exactly what you did, why, and how it worked out. Define learning objectives. State them clearly and provide sufficient detail and coverage. Keep it simple, keep it measurable, and measure it afterward. Keep things light. Don't get bogged down in technical details. Make the training interesting, relevant, and timely. You don't want the users to view the awareness efforts as tedious. Help users understand their roles in infosec. Everyone has a role in securing information assets, even if you do nothing but log into the system and check email messages. And finally, provide good information early rather than perfect information late. It doesn't have to be perfect and the most beautiful training you've ever seen. It needs to be acceptable, effective, and timely to be beneficial. To summarize this section, SETA programs are often overlooked, particularly at the implementation phase. Overlooking these programs does a disservice to your organization. Well-designed SETA programs provide value and enhance security of the organization. The program should be good enough, but not necessarily perfect, to get the right information to the right users at the right time and in the correct format. Training may be delivered effectively through in-house options, or training may be outsourced. The decision on how to deliver the training depends on numerous organizational and regulatory issues. Make the best decision for your organization at the time and move on. Part of SETA programs should include changing attitudes toward security, ensuring that users and managers understand the importance of security. Don't overlook SETA programs as part of your overall information security plan and policies. If you follow these guidelines, it's likely that your security awareness efforts will be successful and your information assets will be better protected. And you'll be ahead of most other organizations, giving you a competitive advantage. We continue with Chapter 5, Developing the Security Program. We continue with Section 6, Project Management and Security. In this section, we will discuss the last learning outcome, discuss the role of project management in information security. We start this section with the definition of project management from Duncan. Project management is, quote, the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities to meet project requirements. Project management is accomplished through the use of processes such as initiating, planning, executing, controlling, and closing, end quote. A key component of project management is that it has a beginning and an end. If the project never ends, well, then it's not considered a project. Projects also include a temporary gathering of resources to accomplish a specific goal or goals. Some projects are iterative and occur regularly. Many information security activities occur regularly and may be classified as a series of projects. Thus, it's important for infosec professionals to understand the components of project management. Now, if we think of the information security program, we can see that it has a definite beginning and ending state. From the initial state, we create enterprise information security policy, followed by assessing risk, evaluating the impact of infosec on the business, designing the network perimeter for security, and implementing a firewall. At that point, you reach the planned or desired state, which is a fully formed, well-documented, and secure plan for your organization. Organizations that have good project management benefit in multiple ways. First, by using a methodology, you ensure that no steps are missed. Next, creating a detailed blueprint of project activities provides a common reference tool and makes all project team members more productive by shortening the learning curve when getting projects underway. Identifying specific responsibilities for all the involved personnel reduces ambiguity and also reduces confusion. Clearly defining project constraints and minimum quality requirements increases the likelihood that the project will stay within the identified constraints. Identifying deviations in quality, time, or budget early on enables early correction of the problems. Later in the project, it's more difficult to make changes without impacting cost, quality, or functionality. Finally, establishing performance measures and creating project milestones simplifies project monitoring. You're able to measure and assess relevant items. Project success may be defined differently in each organization, but in general, a project is deemed a success when it is completed on time or early, it is completed at or below its budgeted amount, and it meets all specifications outlined in the approved project definition, and the deliverables are accepted by the end user and/or assigning entity. Most IT projects fail. That's a simple fact. But by using good project management techniques, you increase the chances of delivering a successful outcome. PMBOK, which is the project management body of knowledge, defines several knowledge areas that the project manager must understand. Communications, project managers must ensure that everyone is aware of the plan and that it is clearly stated in formats that are appropriate for the audience. Cost, project manager must manage the financial resources dedicated to the project. Managing cost occurs through all steps in the project. HR, the project manager must also adequately use the human resources that have been provided and to ask for more when needed. Integration, the project manager has to bring everything together, manage all of them at the same time. The project manager must understand that adding or removing resources affects other parts of the plan and must adjust accordingly. Procurement, here the project manager acquires the non-HR resources needed for the project. Quality, the project manager must test regularly and ensure that the outcome will meet or exceed the specifications required. Risk, the project manager should minimize the impact of negative occurrences and adjust when they do occur. Scope, It's important to define what the project does, and equally important to define what it does not do. Stakeholder. The project manager should have good relationships and communication skills and should cultivate relationships with important stakeholders throughout the process. Finally, the project manager must ensure that time constraints are met. Measuring and assessing performance from start to finish is necessary to meet time constraints. As discussed, most technology-related projects fail. They are over time, have lower quality than specified, and/or they have less functionality than desired. Companies that use project management principles, however, improve their chances of having a successful outcome. The Project Management Body of Knowledge, or PMBOK, outlines important areas on which project managers should focus. We finished Chapter 5, Developing the Security Plan, with Section 6, Project Management Tools. In this section, we discussed the last learning outcome, discussed the role of project management in information security. There are many tools that support the management of the diverse resources in complex projects. Most project managers combine software tools that implement one or more of the dominant modeling approaches. However, project managers must take care not to get projectitis, which is what happens when the project manager spends more time documenting project tasks, collecting performance measurements, recording project task information, and updating project completion forecast than accomplishing meaningful project work. Project managers should divide the tasks to be completed into work breakdown structures. At a minimum, the attributes that should be determined for each task are the work to be accomplished, activities, and deliverables. Here you lay out each activity that must be accomplished from beginning to end and the deliverables expected. For instance, you may have to meet with users to understand their needs, and the deliverable is a set of end-user specifications. Estimated amount of effort required for completion in hours or workdays must be included as part of the project plan. The common or specialty skills needed to perform the task. Does the person who completes the task need IT or infosec related skills? If so, list them and make sure that you get a qualified person with the needed skills. Task interdependencies. Define how each task is related to another. For instance, you can't implement system security until the new technology arrives. Breaking down the work into manageable sections allows better management throughout the project management lifecycle and leads to better success. With such high failure rates with technology-related projects, anything you can do to improve chances of success should be considered. Let's look more closely at the work breakdown structure, or WBS. As the project plan develops, additional attributes can be added, including the work to be accomplished. The first step in the work breakdown structure is to identify the work to be accomplished in the task or task area. This encompasses both activities and deliverables. Planners need to estimate the expected capital and non-capital expenses for the completion of each task, subtask, or action item. Task assignment according to specific skills. Project managers need to assign those with specifically defined skills to each task. Start and end dates. In the early stages of planning, the project manager should focus on determining completion dates only for major milestones within the project. By milestone, we mean a specific task completion point in the project plan that has a noticeable effect on the progress of the project plan as a whole. For instance, the technology that you ordered arrived, which means you can move forward on many tasks. The amount of effort. Planners need to estimate the effort required to complete each task, subtask, or action step. Skill sets, human resources. The project planner should describe the skill set or individual, often called a human resource, needed to accomplish the task. Instead of assigning a specific individual, the plan should focus on roles or known skill sets. So we need someone with experience with JavaScript, but we don't identify Todd as the person we need. Finally, task dependencies. Planners should note wherever possible when a task or action step is dependent upon other tasks or action steps. Here is an example of an early draft of the work breakdown structure. Tasks are measurable and understandable, and the effort in hours and skills needed are included. All of task number 2 through 7 depend on previous tasks and are noted as such in the diagram. Obviously, the network assumptions would have to be confirmed before the firewall hardware can be purchased. One method for sequencing tasks and subtasks in a project plan is known as network scheduling. The network refers to the web of possible pathways to project completion from the beginning task to the ending task. In this simple example, activity A is to install a firewall, followed by activity B, which is to configure rules for the firewall, and activity C then tests the operation. This is obviously a very simplistic network scheduling model. Here you see a somewhat more realistic, complex network dependency diagram with time estimates for each task, A through I, and interrelated dependencies between tasks. The most popular of networking dependency diagram techniques, PERT, was originally developed in the late 1950s to meet the needs of rapidly expanding government-driven engineering projects. About the same time, a similar project called the critical path method was being developed in industry. It is possible to take a very complex operation and diagram it in PERT if you can answer 3 key questions about each activity. How long will this activity take? What activity occurs immediately before this activity can take place? And what activity occurs immediately after this activity? By identifying the path through the various activities, you can determine the critical path to the successful project. Like any tool, PERT has advantages and disadvantages. The advantages include it makes planning large projects easier by helping identify pre- and post activities. It also allows planning to determine the odds of meeting requirements. Further, PERT anticipates the impact of changes on the system as a whole and not just a single task or activity. PERT presents information in a format that both technical and non-technical managers can understand and use. If you're an infosec professional, you have to be able to talk to non-technical managers. They are the ones who usually control the allocation of funds to projects, so you want them to be your friends. Finally, PERT requires no formal training. PERT isn't without its disadvantages, however. Diagrams in PERT can become awkward and cumbersome, especially in very large projects. Diagrams can become expensive to develop and maintain due to the complexities of some project development processes. It can be difficult to place an accurate time to complete on some tasks, especially in the initial construction of a project. Inaccurate estimates can invalidate any close critical path calculations and call into question the credibility of the entire plan. PERT has its flaws, but it's an excellent tool to use for large project planning. Another popular project management tool is the bar or Gantt chart, named for Henry Gantt, who developed this method in the early 1900s. Like network diagrams, Gantt charts are easy to read and understand, and thus easy to present to management and those people who make decisions on where to award money and other resources. These simple bar charts are even easier to design and implement than the PERT diagram and yield much of the same information. The Gantt chart lists activities on the vertical axis of a bar chart and provides a simple timeline on the horizontal axis. It's not as critical which tool you use, Gantt, PERT, or another tool. Use a simple tool that meets the needs of your project, is easy to maintain, and that is easy to present to decision makers. Here is an example of a project Gantt chart which shows tasks, duration, start and end dates, and the assignments for each task. The Gantt chart is an easy-to-read diagram of a project, although it gets messy as the project increases in size. Microsoft Project is a widely used project management tool and one used by many people across multiple industries and projects from large to small. If you're considering using an automated project management tool, it helps to keep the following in mind. A software program cannot take the place of a skilled and experienced project manager who understands how to define tasks, allocate scarce resources, and manage the resources that are assigned. A software tool can get in the way of the work. Remember Project Titus we discussed earlier. Choose a tool that you can use effectively. The best tool in the world isn't good for you if you don't use it, or if you don't understand it, or even if you simply don't like it. In this section, we discuss the tools that project managers may use to help organize tasks, activities, and time. In summary, PERT and Gantt charts are two tool options that may be used by successful managers who want to improve the chances of successfully implementing an information security plan. Microsoft Office is one of the more popular project management tools. There are free versions of project management software as well. Use whatever works given the constraints and culture of your organization.